Everyone panicked when the Queen's daughters disappeared. They were found clinging to the human. The klaxons screamed through Haven Station's corridors like wounded beasts. Commander Helena Cross pressed her palm against the central command console, watching red emergency lights bathe her bridge crew in hellish crimson. Thermal sensors show nothing in the royal quarters, Lieutenant Morrison called out. The princesses just aren't there. How does a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old just vanish from a secured diplomatic wing? Helena snapped. The station's artificial gravity hummed beneath her boots, a constant reminder that they were suspended in the void. The blast doors hissed open. Ice seemed to flow into the room ahead of Queen Seraphina. She moved with predatory grace, emerald skin gleaming beneath ornate armor that caught the emergency lights. Her amber eyes swept the bridge with lethal intensity. "Where are my daughters?" Her voice carried the chill of deep space. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees from her presence alone. Behind her, Captain Darius stood like a living weapon. "Your Majesty, we're conducting a comprehensive search," Helena began. "I can smell their fear," Seraphina interrupted, nostrils flaring. "They are afraid and they are cold. Too cold. My daughters cannot survive in your temperatures for long." "Sir," Morrison's voice cracked. "2 Arctanian life signs, Sector 7, thermal workshops." Seraphina moved before Helena could react, flowing through the corridors like quicksilver death. They descended through access shafts, following faint trace signatures toward Workshop 7. "There!" Darius growled, gesturing toward the sealed door. "The scent is strongest here." Seraphina reached the door first, her gauntleted hand hovering over the access panel. For the first time since Helena had known her, the Queen hesitated. Fear flickered across her features. The door hissed open. Thane Blackwood sat on the workshop floor with his back against a thermal regulator. In his arms, 2 small figures clung to him with desperate strength. Princess Arya had her face buried against his chest, while little Luna curled against his side. Their skin had faded to a pale blue-green that spoke of dangerous cold, but where they touched the human's warmth, color flowed back into their small bodies. Thane looked up as they entered, brown eyes wide with concern. "Thank the void you're here. I found them about an hour ago, nearly frozen. They were barely breathing when I pulled them out of the coolant storage bay." "Step away from my daughters!" Seraphina's voice could have cut diamond. Thane's arms tightened protectively. "I don't think that's a good idea. Every time I try to put them down, they get colder." He gently shifted area in his arms, creating a small gap between her body and his chest. Immediately, the child's skin began to pale again. A small whimper escaped her lips as she pressed closer to him instinctively. Seraphina's breath caught audibly. "That's impossible. They have internal temperature regulation." "Then something's wrong with theirs," Thane said bluntly, meeting her gaze without flinching. "I'm not a doctor, but I know hypothermia when I see it." Helena activated her comm. "Medical team to Workshop 7 immediately." Seraphina moved closer, bringing the scent of winter air and metal polish. "I can examine them. I know their physiology better than your physicians." "You can examine them right here," Thane said firmly, "because I'm not letting them get cold again." The Queen's amber eyes blazed with fury and something that looked almost like admiration. She knelt with fluid grace, armor chiming softly. This close, Helena could see intricate patterns etched into the metal. "May I?" Seraphina reached out, stopping just short of touching Arya's face. Thane nodded. The Queen's fingers, surprisingly gentle, traced along her daughter's forehead. "Her temperature is stable, but it should not require external heat sources. Something has damaged their thermal regulation." Her voice carried growing horror. "Someone has damaged it." "Poisoned," Darius rumbled. "I can smell it now. Subtle. Designed to appear as illness rather than attack." Helena felt ice forming in her stomach. "Someone deliberately tried to kill my daughters," Seraphina finished, her voice promising absolute retribution. The medical team arrived in a clatter of equipment. But when they approached, both princesses clung tighter to Thane and began to pale. Dr. Sarah Kim ran her scanners from a distance. "The human's body heat is bypassing their damaged regulatory systems," she murmured, studying readouts. "His thermal output is directly sustaining their core temperature." "How is that possible?" Helena asked. "It shouldn't be," Seraphina said slowly, staring at Thane with an unreadable expression. "Human warmth should be uncomfortable for Arctanian physiology, not beneficial." "I just know these little ones were freezing," Thane said, shifting Luna more comfortably. "Whatever was done to them, we need to find who did this fast." "What do you mean?" Seraphina asked, though Helena saw she already understood. Whoever poisoned them knew exactly what it would do. They knew these children would seek out heat sources to survive. His jaw tightened. This wasn't just assassination. It was designed to look like kidnapping. Someone wants your alliance talks to fail. The workshop fell silent except for thermal regulators, humming, and the soft breathing of two small princesses. Understanding passed between the human engineer and the alien queen. Something complex and dangerous. Thane Blackwood, he supplied when Dr. Kim gestured toward him, and they can maintain contact as long as necessary. I'm not going anywhere. Seraphina's gaze met his, and Helena saw something spark in those amber depths. Not just gratitude or maternal desperation, something warmer and more dangerous. Then it appears, the queen said softly, that my daughters have chosen their guardian. I pray you understand what that means. Thane looked down at the sleeping children, then back at their mother. I understand that someone tried to hurt them, and that's not happening again. Everything else we'll figure out as we go. Both princesses stirred, faces turning toward his warmth with instinctive trust. Helena realized this was only the beginning. Whoever had poisoned royal children had just made their first mistake. They'd underestimated what a queen would do when her children's lives depended on a man becoming far more than just their guardian. The temporary quarters assigned to Queen Seraphina had been hastily converted from a diplomatic suite to accommodate the crisis. Thane sat in an ornate chair that hadn't been designed for human proportions. Princess Aria curled in his lap while Luna nestled against his side. Both children slept peacefully, their skin maintaining the healthy emerald hue that matched their mother's. Seraphina paced the length of the chamber like a caged predator, her armor plates catching the soft lighting with each measured step. She'd removed her gauntlets, revealing hands that were surprisingly delicate despite their obvious strength. Thane found himself watching the way her fingers moved as she gestured, articulate and precise. The toxicology reports confirmed Darius's assessment, she said, amber eyes flicking toward him. Thermal disruption compound, extremely rare, extremely expensive. This was not some random attack. Someone with serious resources wanted your daughters to suffer. Thane agreed, adjusting his position slightly as Aria murmured in her sleep. The question is whether they wanted them dead or just wanted to create this exact situation. Seraphina paused in her pacing, turning to face him fully. You believe they intended for my daughters to be found with a human? I think they counted on basic physics. Cold-blooded beings seek warmth when their systems fail. Your daughters would naturally gravitate toward the hottest area of the station, the thermal workshops where I work. He met her gaze steadily. Whoever did this knew Arctanian biology well enough to predict their behavior, and human nature well enough to predict yours, Seraphina said softly. She moved closer, and Thane caught that scent again, clean and sharp like winter starlight. You could have called security immediately when you found them. Instead, you chose to provide aid first. They were children in distress. The rest was politics. Something shifted in her expression, a warmth that had nothing to do with temperature regulation. Politics that could cost you dearly. There are those who will claim you orchestrated this entire scenario. Are you one of them? Thane asked directly. Seraphina knelt beside his chair, bringing her face level with his. This close, he could see flecks of gold in her amber eyes, and the way her pupils dilated slightly as she studied his features. If I believed that, would I allow you to continue holding my daughters? The question hung between them, charged with implications neither was ready to voice. Thane felt his pulse quicken as Seraphina's attention focused on his mouth for a moment before returning to his eyes. Your Majesty, Darius's voice cut through the tension from the doorway. Commander Cross requests your presence in the security briefing. Seraphina rose gracefully, but not before Thane caught the slight flush that darkened her green skin. What have they found? Surveillance footage from the royal quarters. Someone accessed the children's chambers 12 hours before they were discovered missing. Darius's expression was grim. The intruder knew exactly where to find their evening meal supplements. Thane shifted carefully, trying not to wake the sleeping princesses. Inside job? Has to be, Seraphina confirmed. Only someone with diplomatic clearance could access those quarters undetected. The question is whether they acted alone. A soft chime from the door announced Dr. Kim's arrival. She entered carrying a portable scanner, her expression troubled. I need to run another thermal analysis. The children's condition appears to be evolving. Evolving how? Seraphina demanded, moving protectively closer to her daughters. Their dependence on external heat sources is decreasing, but only when they maintain contact with Mr. Blackwood specifically. Kim activated her scanner, running it over the sleeping children from a careful distance. Any other heat source? Thermal blankets, heating units, even body heat from other humans, proves insufficient. It's as if they're attuning to his specific thermal signature. Thane felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. What does that mean? It means, Seraphina said slowly, that the poison was designed to create a very specific dependency. Someone wanted to ensure that my daughters could only be saved by a particular type of human physiology. Or a particular human, Dr. Kim added quietly. The thermal signature match is too precise to be coincidental. The implications hit Thane like a physical blow. You're saying someone studied me specifically? Knew enough about my biology to engineer a poison that would make your daughters dependent on my body heat? It would explain how they knew exactly where to place the children for you to find them, Seraphina said, her voice tight with controlled fury. This entire crisis was orchestrated around you, Thane Blackwood. Before he could respond, the lights flickered and died. Emergency illumination bathed the room in red as alarms began to wail throughout the station. In his arms, both princesses stirred restlessly, whimpering as their instincts registered danger. What's happening? Thane demanded. But Darius was already moving toward the door, weapon drawn. Security breach, the captain reported tersely. Multiple contacts, armed and moving toward this sector. Seraphina's armor began to hum with contained energy as defensive systems activated. They're coming to finish what they started. Not while I'm breathing, Thane said grimly, rising carefully with both children in his arms. Arya wrapped her small arms around his neck while Luna pressed her face against his shoulder, both seeking comfort from his familiar warmth. The thermal laboratory has better defensive positions, Dr. Kim suggested, and backup power for the heating systems if they try to freeze the children out. Go, Seraphina ordered, her voice carrying absolute command authority. Darius will escort you while I coordinate with station security. Like hell, Thane said flatly. We stay together or we don't go at all. These children need both of us. Seraphina turned to stare at him, and Thane saw surprise flicker across her features. You would risk your life for daughters that are not your own? I would risk my life, Thane said, meeting her gaze steadily, for any child who needed protection. The fact that they're yours just makes it personal. The admission hung between them like a bridge neither had expected to cross. Even in the red emergency lighting, Thane could see the way Seraphina's expression softened, vulnerability breaking through her royal composure. Then we go together, she said simply. All of us. The sound of weapons fire echoed from the corridors beyond, growing closer with each passing second. Whoever had orchestrated this crisis was making their final play, and Thane realized with crystal clarity that the next few minutes would determine whether any of them lived to see the dawn. In his arms, Princess Luna looked up at him with sleepy amber eyes so like her mother's, and whispered a single word in accented standard, safe. Thane tightened his hold on both children and met Queen Seraphina's fierce gaze across the emergency-lit chamber. Safe, he promised, and meant it with every fiber of his being. The corridor erupted in plasma fire as Darius rounded the corner ahead of them, his energy blade carving through the air in deadly arcs. Thane pressed both children closer to his chest, feeling their small bodies tremble as combat sounds filled the station's passages. This way, Seraphina commanded, her armor's defensive systems casting shifting light patterns across the walls. She moved with lethal grace, every step calculated to provide maximum cover for Thane and her daughters. They reached the thermal laboratory's reinforced entrance as explosions rocked the station. Thane's keycard activated the locks, and they rushed inside to find the space already occupied. Lord Vorne stood near the main thermal regulator, his expensive diplomatic robes incongruous against the industrial setting. 3 armed mercenaries flanked him, weapons trained on the doorway. His smile was cold as winter void. Your Majesty, he said with mock courtesy. How convenient that you've brought both the children and their guardian directly to me. Seraphina's blade materialized in her hand, humming with deadly energy. Cassius, I should have known human greed was behind this. Not greed. Necessity. Vorne gestured, and his mercenaries spread out, forcing them deeper into the laboratory. The alliance between our species threatens the natural order. So you poison children, Thane said, disgust making Arya whimper and press closer to his warmth. I created an opportunity. The thermal disruption compound was designed to create dependency. Your daughters can now only survive with this particular human's unique biology. Seraphina's amber eyes blazed. What are you talking about? Mr. Blackwood possesses a rare genetic marker that makes his thermal output irresistible to Arctanian physiology when properly triggered. The poison creates addiction to his specific heat signature. Vorne's smile widened. Soon, your daughters won't survive even minutes away from him. Dr. Kim's scanner readings suddenly made horrible sense. Thane felt Luna's small hand fist tighter in his shirt. You're insane, Thane said flatly. I'm practical. With your daughters dependent on a human for survival, the alliance becomes impossible. You'll be forced to relocate to human space as refugees rather than equals. Vorne nodded to his mercenaries. Of course, Mr. Blackwood's usefulness ends once we extract enough genetic material to synthesize the thermal signature. Meaning he dies, Seraphina said coldly. Tragically, during the rescue attempt that went so horribly wrong. The first mercenary moved toward them. Seraphina struck like lightning, her blade taking his arm off at the elbow. The man's scream mixed with cauterizing flesh as he collapsed. Run! She shouted to Thane, spinning to engage the second attacker. Thane bolted deeper into the laboratory, both children clinging to him as chaos erupted behind. The thermal regulators provided cover, their bulky forms creating a maze among pipes and conduits. You cannot hide forever, Blackwood. Vorne's voice echoed through the space. The children grow weaker with each passing hour. As if summoned by his words, Arya began to shiver despite Thane's warmth. Her skin was taking on that frightening blue tinge again, and Luna's breathing had become shallow. It's getting worse, Thane whispered, finding shelter behind a massive heat exchanger. Through machinery gaps, he could see Seraphina dancing between opponents, her blade work deadly beautiful. But there were too many, and she was being forced back. Princess Luna looked up with eyes too large for her small face. Hot, she whispered. Need more hot. Desperation clawed at Thane's throat. The children were becoming more dependent with each passing minute. Soon they'd need skin-to-skin contact just to survive. Unless, his eyes fell on the main thermal regulator's control panel. The station's entire heating system ran through this laboratory. If he could overload the thermal output, stay close to me, he whispered, settling them more securely in his arms. I'm going to make it very warm in here. Thane reached the control panel as Seraphina's battle cry rang through the laboratory. She'd taken down 2 more mercenaries, but Vorne had produced a neural disruptor that made her movements sluggish. Final warning, Blackwood, Vorne called. Surrender now, and I'll make sure the children die quickly. Thane's hands flew over the thermal controls, overriding safety protocols and pushing regulators beyond normal parameters. Heat began pouring from every vent, turning the air shimmery with thermic distortion. Actually, Thane said, standing with both children secure in his arms, I've got a better idea. Temperatures spiked past human tolerance levels, but the princesses began to glow with renewed health. Their skin deepened to rich emerald as artificial heat supplemented his thermal output. The extreme temperature made Vorne's mercenaries sluggish and disoriented. Seraphina seized the advantage, her cold-adapted physiology allowing her to function while opponents suffered. Her blade found the last mercenary's heart as Vorne stumbled backward, sweat pouring down his face. Impossible, he gasped. The heat should be killing you. Arctanian thermal adaptation, Seraphina said coldly, advancing with deadly intent. We evolved in cold, but we can tolerate extremes your physiology cannot. Vorne raised his neural disruptor with shaking hands, but Thane was already moving. He set the children near a heat vent and dove across the laboratory, tackling Vorne before the weapon could fire. They hit the floor hard, rolling among pipes and conduits. Vorne was larger, but extreme heat had sapped his strength while Thane's adrenaline kept him fighting. You're destroying everything, Vorne snarled, trying to wrap hands around Thane's throat. The natural order demands. Seraphina's blade punched through his chest from behind, the energy field cauterizing instantly. Vorne's eyes widened in shock before the light faded entirely. The natural order, Seraphina said quietly, demands that those who threaten children face consequences. Thane rolled away from the corpse, gasping in superheated air. Both princesses sat near their heat vent, chattering happily. Color had fully returned to their skin. Is it over? He asked, accepting Seraphina's hand as she helped him up. This part is, she confirmed, amber eyes holding worry. The poison is still in their systems. They'll continue needing thermal supplementation until we synthesize an antidote. Thane looked at her, standing in battle-scarred armor with fiery hair disheveled and skin glowing with perspiration. She was magnificent and deadly and utterly captivating. Then I guess we'll just have to stay very close until then. The way she looked at him suggested that might not be such a hardship after all. The station's medical bay hummed with activity as Dr. Kim worked frantically at her synthesis equipment. Thane sat on the examination table with Princess Arya curled in his lap and Luna nestled against his side, both children maintaining the skin-to-skin contact their poisoned systems now craved. The thermal dependency is accelerating, Kim reported, her voice tight with concern. Their cellular structure is adapting to Mr. Blackwood's specific heat signature. If we don't reverse this soon, the bond will become permanent. Seraphina paced the length of the medical bay, her armor plates chiming softly with each step. She'd removed her gauntlets again, and Thane found himself watching the way her bare hands moved as she gestured. Even in crisis, she was captivating. "How long do we have?" she asked, amber eyes fixed on her daughters. "Hours, maybe less." The poison was designed to create irreversible dependency within 48 hours of exposure. Kim's scanner beeped urgently. The children's thermal receptors are already showing permanent structural changes. Thane felt Arya's small hand press against his chest, seeking warmth even through his shirt. "What happens if we can't synthesize the antidote in time?" "They'll need constant physical contact with you to survive," Kim said bluntly. "Body heat, skin contact, shared warmth. Without it, their systems will shut down within minutes." The implications hung heavy in the air. Seraphina stopped pacing, her gaze meeting Thane's across the medical bay. He saw vulnerability there, beneath her royal composure, a mother's desperate fear for her children's future. "There has to be another way," she said quietly. "Actually," Kim said, studying her readings more carefully, "there might be. The thermal bond works both ways. Mr. Blackwood's metabolism is adapting to support the children's needs, but that adaptation could be the key to the cure." "Meaning?" Thane asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. "We need to synthesize the antidote using your adapted thermal signatures, but the process requires maintaining maximum thermal output during the synthesis. Essentially, you'd need to generate enough heat to keep the children stable while we extract the necessary biological markers from your system." Seraphina moved closer, her scent of winter starlight filling the space between them. "That sounds dangerous." "It is," Kim admitted. "The thermal extraction process could kill him. His metabolism isn't designed to sustain that kind of output for extended periods." Princess Luna looked up at Thane with sleepy amber eyes so like her mother's. "Safe?" she whispered in her small voice. Thane smoothed her copper hair with gentle fingers. "Always safe, little one." "You cannot ask this of him," Seraphina said fiercely, moving to stand directly beside the examination table. "You cannot ask a man to die for children who aren't his own." "They are now," Thane said simply, the words carrying more weight than he'd intended. "From the moment I found them freezing in that storage bay, they became mine to protect. Both of them." Seraphina's breath caught audibly. She reached out as if to touch his face, then stopped just short, her fingers trembling in the space between them. "Thane, besides," he continued, trying to lighten the moment even as his pulse quickened at her proximity. "Someone has to keep their mother warm too." The admission hung between them like a bridge finally crossed. Seraphina's amber eyes widened, and Thane saw his own growing feelings reflected there. Attraction that had moved far beyond gratitude or circumstance into something deeper and more dangerous. "The thermal extraction begins immediately," Kim announced, oblivious to the charged atmosphere. "Mr. Blackwood, I need you to remove your shirt. Direct skin contact will maximize the efficiency." Thane shifted the children carefully and pulled off his work shirt, revealing the lean muscle of someone who spent his days working with heavy machinery. Seraphina's gaze swept over his exposed chest, and he heard her sharp intake of breath. "The children need to maintain contact throughout the procedure," Kim continued, activating the extraction apparatus. "And Your Majesty, your presence will help stabilize their emotional state." Seraphina moved closer, ostensibly to comfort her daughters, but Thane felt the heat radiating from her armored form. This close, he could see the intricate patterns etched into her breastplate, designs that seemed to shift and flow in the medical bay's lighting. "Are you certain about this?" she asked quietly, her voice meant for him alone. "I've never been more certain of anything," he replied, meeting her gaze steadily. "These children deserve a future, and their mother deserves to see them grow up healthy and strong." The extraction apparatus hummed to life, and Thane felt his body temperature begin to spike as the machine encouraged his metabolism to maximum thermal output. Both princesses purred contentedly against his heated skin, their own temperatures stabilizing as his rose. "Thermal markers are reading positive," Kim reported. "Beginning antidote synthesis now." Sweat beaded on Thane's forehead as his body fought to maintain the elevated heat output. His vision wavered slightly, and he felt Seraphina's cool hand touch his shoulder, an anchor point in the growing disorientation. "Stay with us," she whispered, her fingers tracing gentle patterns on his overheated skin. "Stay with me." The contact sent electricity through him that had nothing to do with thermal regulation. Even through his growing exhaustion, Thane was acutely aware of every place her skin touched his, every breath she took that stirred the air between them. "Synthesis at 60%, Kim announced. "Vital signs are holding steady." Princess Arya stirred in his lap, looking up at him with worried amber eyes. "Hot man, okay?" she asked in her accented child's voice. "Hot man is fine," Thane assured her, though his voice was rougher than usual. "Just making medicine to make you and Luna better." Synthesis complete, Kim said triumphantly. Beginning injection sequence. The antidote flowed into both children through dermal patches, and Thane watched as their dependence on his heat gradually decreased. Their skin remained healthy emerald even when they shifted away from direct contact, their thermal regulation system slowly returning to normal function. It's working, Seraphina breathed, relief flooding her voice. They're healing. Thane let his thermal output drop back to normal levels, exhaustion hitting him like a physical blow. But as he looked at the two healthy princesses in his arms and met their mother's grateful gaze, he knew every risk had been worth it. So, he said quietly, what happens now? Seraphina's smile was radiant and full of promise. Now we discover what happens when a queen falls in love with her daughter's guardian. 3 days after the antidote, Thane found himself in the observation deck of Haven Station's diplomatic wing, watching the stars wheel slowly past the reinforced transparent steel. The children were fully recovered now, their thermal regulation systems functioning normally, though they still sought out his warmth more often than strictly necessary. Behind him, the soft whisper of armored footsteps announced Seraphina's approach. She'd traded her battle armor for something more elegant, deep green fabric that complemented her skin and intricate metalwork that caught the starlight. Her copper hair fell in waves around her shoulders, unbound for the first time since he'd known her. The council has agreed to continue the alliance negotiations, she said, moving to stand beside him at the viewing port. Vorne's conspiracy died with him. That's good news, Thane replied, though his attention was focused more on her proximity than galactic politics. Even without her armor, she radiated strength and grace that made his pulse quicken. There's been another development, she continued, her amber eyes reflecting the starfield beyond the station. The Arctanian Royal Council has voted to establish a permanent embassy here on Haven Station. Someone will need to serve as our primary liaison with human space. Thane felt his stomach tighten. You're leaving. Not exactly. Seraphina turned to face him fully, and he saw something vulnerable in her expression that took his breath away. The position requires someone who understands both cultures intimately, someone who has proven themselves capable of bridging the gap between our species. You're offering me a job? Thane asked, not quite believing what he was hearing. I'm offering you a choice, she said softly. You could continue working thermal engineering on Haven Station. It's honorable work, and you're skilled at it. Or, she stepped closer, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. You could accept the position of human Arctanian cultural liaison. The role comes with certain benefits. Such as? Seraphina's hand rose to rest against his chest, her fingers spreading over his heart. Such as working closely with the Arctanian Queen on matters of mutual interest. Such as helping to raise two little princesses who have already decided you're the most important person in their universe besides their mother. Thane's breath caught as her meaning became clear. Seraphina! Such as sharing quarters with someone who discovered that human warmth can be addictive in ways that have nothing to do with thermal regulation, she continued, her voice dropping to an intimate whisper. Someone who found that the man who saved her daughters also saved her heart. The confession hung between them like a bridge finally built across the space that had always separated their worlds. Thane reached up to cover her hand with his, feeling the contrast between her cool skin and his own warmth. Your people will accept a human in your court? My people will accept whoever their queen chooses, and I choose you, Thane Blackwood. Not because you saved my daughters, though that would be reason enough. Not because our species need bridges between them, though they do. Her amber eyes searched his face. I choose you because when I look at you, I see not just a guardian or a liaison or even a lover. I see home. Before he could respond, the observation deck's doors slid open with a soft hiss. Princess Aria and Princess Luna ran across the polished floor, their small feet pattering like raindrops. They'd grown bolder over the past few days, their natural curiosity returning as their health improved. Thane! Aria called out in her accented standard. Mama said you might go away. You can't go away. Luna attached herself to his leg with the fierce determination only a 4-year-old could muster. You stay! You warm! Thane knelt to gather both children into his arms, feeling their solid weight and endless trust. I'm not going anywhere, little ones. Your mama has offered me a very important job. What job? Aria asked, her amber eyes wide with curiosity. Taking care of you and your mama, Thane said simply, making sure you all stay safe and warm and happy. Forever? Luna asked hopefully. Thane looked up at Seraphina, seeing his own feelings reflected in her radiant smile. Forever. Good, Aria declared with royal authority that would have been amusing if it weren't so endearing. You belong to us now. Actually, Seraphina said, kneeling beside them all, I think we belong to each other, all of us, together. She leaned forward, closing the final distance between them, and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was gentle at first, exploratory, then deeper as years of loneliness and duty melted away in the warmth they created together. Her skin was cool silk against his, but where they touched, heat bloomed like flowers in spring. When they finally separated, both children were giggling and making exaggerated kissing sounds. Thane felt his cheeks warm with more than just thermal regulation. So, he said, rising and pulling Seraphina up with him, when do I start my new job? Immediately, she replied, her smile promising adventures far beyond cultural liaison work. The first task involves relocating to the royal quarters. The second involves learning Arctanian lullabies. And the third? He asked, wrapping his arms around her waist. The third, she said, rising on her toes to whisper against his ear, involves discovering exactly how warm a queen can get when she's properly motivated. The star field beyond Haven Station continued its eternal dance. But Thane no longer felt the cold distance between worlds. He had found his place in the universe, not among the stars themselves, but in the love of a remarkable woman and the trust of two extraordinary children. As Princess Luna tugged on his hand and Princess Arya chattered excitedly about showing him their favorite hiding places in the royal quarters, Thane realized that sometimes the greatest adventures began not with grand quests or heroic deeds, but with the simple choice to open one's heart to the warmth of an unexpected family. The thermal guardian had found his home at last, in the embrace of those who needed his warmth as much as he needed theirs. Outside the observation deck, the universe stretched vast and cold, but inside, surrounded by love that transcended species and circumstance, Thane Blackwood had never felt warmer.